God knows how many other cards are on the ban list purely because Firewall is not allowed to be banned. I mean, it's kind of a joke and meme, right? But really, how many cards are we going to see hit on this ban list before this card is addressed? So many things in this at this YCS here managed to get a top, kind of undeservedly. Decks that really just, I don't believe, are good and healthy for the game. Getting their way just because of the fact that Firewall Dragon is at 1. Doesn't matter how many cards we hit, Nightmare Goblin, Invoker, whatever it is, it doesn't matter if you hit it. It doesn't matter if you hit it, because Firewall Dragon is a card that enables a strategy where you can U-Link your opponent, and U-Links are just...
Considering how many degenerate combos and decks are played and made possible by the existence of Firewall Dragon, it's pretty crazy to think about that the card has not been banned yet. I mean, I'll give Konami some credit. In February of 2018, they did limit the card. However, this card is still running amok and tearing up tournaments, performing not only crazy feats in decks like Goki, where you U-Link your opponent, but also, as recently as YCS Niagara this past weekend, multiple FTKs with Cannon Soldier. And a lot of people are confused about how Firewall Dragon has not been banned yet. When will this card eventually be hit to Forbidden? I don't know the answer to that, but I do think I know the answer to how it's avoided the ban list thus far, and likely how it will continue to avoid the ban list until Konami finally addresses it. And the simple answer is that Konami has decided, instead of hitting Firewall, instead of banning Firewall, they are just going to hit literally every other card that's ever been used in a Firewall sort of degenerate combo or degenerate strategy in existence. And I think that's a pretty crazy idea, but I thought I'd make a fun video. So in today's video, we're going to talk about all of the cards that have been hit on the Forbidden and Limited list, some of them banned, some of them limited or semi-limited, and we're going to talk about all of them, and also some honorable mentions that maybe didn't directly get hit because of Firewall Dragon, but definitely indirectly got hit because of Firewall Dragon. It's worth mentioning with Firewall Dragon specifically, when compared to cards like Elder Entity Norden, that even though, yes, both cards are shown to promote many FTKs, in the case of Elder Entity Norden, for the most part, those FTKs weren't actually that practical. People weren't really taking them to tournaments. It was just something to show in YouTube clips. But in the case of Firewall Dragon, many of the FTKs that are possible with this card actually saw a ton of competitive success, and the first card that was ever hit because of Firewall Dragon actually happened very soon after the release of Firewall Dragon, actually at the very first YCS with Link Monsters, and that was in September of 2017, Grand Soil the Elemental Lord. Now this card topped in a Dinosaur FTK deck that looped a ton of cards, mainly using Firewall Dragon. This is back when Firewall Dragon was at 3 copies per deck, which I can't even really think about right now. Like, that seems so crazy that Firewall Dragon was allowed at 3 copies per deck, but this actually did top YCS Toronto. There's a deck profile on Team Samurai's channel, and this was the first incident where Konami doesn't hit Firewall Dragon. They don't even limit it quite yet, because that was in February of 2018, not September, so they don't even hit Firewall at all, and they hit a different card. Now at this point, it could be said that Firewall Dragon was pretty new and Grand Soil was pretty old, so it makes sense not to hit Firewall Dragon, but what we'll sort of notice here is that this is the same idea that Konami has taken time and time again. Now over a year after Firewall Dragon has come out, they are still continuing to hit every card in existence besides Firewall Dragon, but it all started with Grand Soil. I'll talk about the November ban list that happened between the two real ban lists in 2017. However, right now I want to focus on the February 2018 ban list, because there's a card that alongside Firewall Dragon got directly hit because of the existence of Firewall Dragon. So Firewall Dragon did get limited in February, and that is worth mentioning. Konami did take some steps to at least make sure that you couldn't loop Firewall Dragons next to each other, which was like the craziest thing we all thought of back then, although we didn't quite realize that it would actually just get even crazier. But the other card that they hit on that ban list that was directly because of Firewall Dragon existing was Grinder Golem. Now Grinder Golem it didn't see a ton of success in the TCG. I will admit that. I mean, it saw a couple regional tops, but the main idea with Grinder Golem being hit is that in the OCG, at least, with a card called Security Dragon existing, one Grinder Golem would actually end you with 2 Firewall Dragons co-linked, which was pretty darn good. I mean, maybe not as crazy as like one card FTKs like we have at YCS Niagara, but at least for February of 2018, it seemed pretty ridiculous that one Grinder Golem could get you to 2 Firewall Dragons, which many cards back then simply couldn't do. Even a card like Scapegoat was a 1-card Firewall Dragon. You had to wait a turn for that and only summon 1 of them, so Grinder Golem being able to summon 2 of them on your first turn seemed pretty ridiculous, and that's why they hit that card once again, showing that they'll hit Grinder Golem, a completely random card that isn't even seen play before they'll touch Firewall Dragon other than limiting it. After the February ban list, there was a ban list in May of 2018 where there will be an honorable mention for this video, but for now let's skip forward to September of 2018, which was the most recent ban list in Yu-Gi-Oh! And not only was there 1 card that was hit because of Firewall Dragon, there were 3 cards that were hit instead of Firewall Dragon, and potentially a 4th one that I'll mention at the end of the video. But anyway, the first card that I want to talk about, and the one that definitely, if of more so than any of the cards on this list, took the bullet for Firewall Dragon, it's Nightmare Goblin. Now, it's a big deal when a first card from a new summoning mechanic gets banned. I mean, if you think of Synchros and Pendulums, Exceed Monsters, whichever card of those new types gets banned the first time, it really shows a precedent that Konami is setting on what cards have to be broken enough to actually be forbidden from the game forever, at least for the time being. And Nightmare Goblin doesn't seem like that type of card. I mean, if you compare Nightmare Goblin just in a vacuum, like if you just read the effect and don't read anything else, to Firewall Dragon and you just read Firewall Dragon effect, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Like Nightmare Goblin doesn't seem anywhere near as powerful, and that's because it's not. I mean, that's literally why this card doesn't make any sense. I mean, Nightmare Goblin, don't get me wrong, is a very good card that's played in a lot of strategies. However, with the banning of this card, it was almost immediately replaced by Summon Sorceress in most of the combos, leaving cards like Summon Sorceress and Firewall Dragon to be the replacement combos for Nightmare Goblin and Firewall Dragon, which makes it kind of weird because then you would seem that like, okay, maybe they would just ban Firewall Dragon, but nope, Goblin got banned instead. More so than that though, we also have M-X-SABER Invoker, which was played in Goki's, the deck that was primarily abusing Firewall Dragon the most, and also directly you have a Assault Core getting banned. Now this was done to prevent an FTK that happened. After YCS Niagara though, we know that this didn't work. Even though a Assault Core is limited on this ban list that just came out, it didn't stop an FTK from happening. Instead of a Assault Core being looped, it actually just loops the any Dark World monster and Grapha to do infinite damage with Cannon Soldier. So I can see where they were going with this, but it just sort of accidentally sort of hit the ABC strategy, which a lot of budget players really liked, and people like Kelvin Tahan played the deck at pretty much every single event to a lot of success. But they randomly limited a Assault Core hitting an FTK that wasn't being played just in case it might be played, and then not only did you accidentally kill a rogue strategy that a lot of people liked and was a really big fan favorite amongst a lot of people, you also didn't actually prevent the FTK from happening because Firewall Dragon still existed. So people at YCS Niagara, 3 different people topped with FTK decks at YCS Niagara, one of them getting 2nd place. That is crazy. I mean, this is like the same thing that happened with Pendulum FTK, which happened earlier in 2018, right at the start of 2018. Everyone's playing Pendulum FTK. I don't know, there's never been a year in Yu-Gi-Oh! That I can remember where an FTK, 2 separate FTKs were viable as like the top strategy. Well, maybe not. It's a little too early to say that Danger Dark Worlds are like the top strategy, but just in general, the fact that 2 prominent FTKs were viable this year, not to mention things like Gemini FTK, which saw success as well, it blows my mind. So you can see on this last ban list, 3 cards got hit. And finally, I want to mention some of my honorable mentions. Now, I put these cards at the end of the video because it's a little bit difficult to actually pinpoint the reason that these cards were hit on the ban list. While Firewall Dragon definitely played a role, I wouldn't say that these cards got hit instead of Firewall Dragon. So the first thing that I want to mention is going back to that November 2017 emergency ban list where they hit Spirals, and I'm going to talk about Spiral Drone and Spiral Quick Fix. Now, these cards are obviously independently extremely powerful, especially especially with machine duplication. But one of the reasons that spirals were so deadly back then is because they set up a board of double Firewall Dragon next to Spiral Sleeper. You didn't have the extra linking that you have these days with spirals and Gokis and stuff like that, but that was a really hard field to actually break, and without Firewall Dragon in the mix, if you just straight up banned it right then, that deck probably would not have been as successful. Don't get me wrong, it still would have been successful. It's still a very powerful strategy, but without Firewall Dragon, many of the combos don't work, or they don't end on as good as boards, because that's way before many of the good link monsters that we think of nowadays, like the Nightmares and Trigate Wizard and stuff like that. So without Spiral Drone and Quick Fix in the metagame, obviously spirals were still a very powerful deck, thanks to, in part, by just having Firewall Dragon still at 3, although that deck pretty much only played 2 copies, it was still the main end goal of your strategy. Next up, between the February and September 2018 ban list, you had the May ban list, and on this list they hit Ancient Fairy Dragon. They finally banned that card, and this was really sad for me personally, because I was playing FAs at the time, and they really liked Ancient Fairy Dragon. Now, it is true that Ancient Fairy Dragon was part of some of the Firewall combos, however, the card was being used in a variety of different ways, so it's a little bit difficult to actually say that this card got banned because of Firewall Dragon or instead of Firewall Dragon, but certainly Firewall Dragon played a big role in Ancient Fairy Dragon getting banned, which is pretty sad. Hopefully, when Firewall Dragon eventually, if it ever happens, gets banned, like years from now, whenever Konami finally decides to do it, finally decides to hit a card like Firewall Dragon, maybe then Ancient Fairy Dragon can finally come off the ban list. What's interesting is that all the people saying that Firewall Dragon can't get hit because it's like in the anime and so important there, it's worth noting that Ancient Fairy Dragon was also in the anime. It's one of the signer dragons, and Konami had no reserves hitting this card on the ban list. And then the last card that I want to talk about, this one's probably like the most loosely related to Firewall Dragon, and that is SAMSARA LOTUS. Now, this card wasn't technically used with Firewall Dragon. I mean, the actual FTK that this card was used in was not using Firewall Dragon like as the end board. It used other cards like Topologic Bomber Dragon. However, Firewall Dragon was played in those strategies as sort of a backup plan if you don't get the FTK off, and also many times would actually help facilitate the FTK itself because you had to use its effect to special summon from your hand. So even though the end state of the SAMSARA LOTUS FTK didn't involve or use the effect of Firewall Dragon, the steps that you took to set up the combo did involve Firewall Dragon, so it's worth mentioning in these honorable mentions. Anyway though, that's pretty much gonna wrap up today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this history of all the cards that have taken the bullet instead of Firewall Dragon. Hopefully someday Konami will hit Firewall Dragon so all these cards can come off the ban list. Obviously some of them maybe, I mean, Grand Soil did come off the ban list with an errata, but many of these are still just sitting on the ban list until Firewall Dragon eventually gets banned. But let me know what you guys think about Firewall Dragon. Should it be banned? Should it be just stay at 1 forever and keep these cards on the ban list? I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching though. I will see you later. Goodbye.